How can someone balance reality
and
of a
actually
project
implement the strategies?
This is SoundView's Executive Insights. My name is Andrew Clancy, Senior Editor with SoundView. We're here today with Cecelia Fitzgibbon, the incoming president of Moore College of Art and Design. Cecelia, thank you for being with us.
My pleasure.
This is a rare opportunity for us in some respects because we have a chance to interview an executive about the subject of career transition as it's taking place. Can you tell us about the new opportunity that you're about to embark on?
Well, after July 16th, I assumed the position of president of Moore College of Art and Design. Very excited about it. It's a culmination of my many experiences in my career. And as such, I will be reporting to the Board of Trustees and the Board of Managers and working with the faculty and the administrative staff to move the institution forward.
You've served, we're filming this today here at Drexel University, and you've served as Drexel's graduate Arts Administration program, the director of the program since 1996. For any executive who spent more than a decade in one position, they often confront a degree of fear when it comes time to make a transition to a new place in their career. Have you experienced apprehension about the change, or is it mostly excitement for you? Well,
certainly it's excitement, but I've said to people that I'm both terrified and thrilled at the same time. And the response has been, well, Baryshnikov said he danced better when he was afraid. So I guess I'm in good company. And in fact, I think we would be foolhardy if we went in without understanding that there will be challenges as well as opportunities. So it's not the challenges that I'm afraid of. I just want to make sure I do the right thing for the institution.
How are you handling it on a day-to-day basis? Or are you looking more big picture, trying to think down the road?
I'm doing a lot of listening. I've been setting up a series of meetings with the Board of Trustees members. I've been meeting with the academic dean and the CFO. I've been talking to people in the community about the reputation of the institution. And I've also been talking with people that I know who are alums of the institution to get a good read, or at least some read, on what they're known for, what they do well, and where some of the potential for improvement might be. For instance, I met with someone yesterday whose nephew graduated about a month ago from Moore's graduate program. And my question to them was, did they have a good experience? Trying to understand just from the ground what some of the reputation is.
I want to touch on community again in a moment, but just in thinking of your goals for Moore College of Art and Design, how does a new leader approach aligning your goals with those that may already be in process at the institution? How do you bring the two together?
That's a good question. Well, during the search process, they shared the strategic plan with me. And my sense is that any institution that is engaging a new leader expects that leader will put their mark on whatever strategic thinking there is for the institution. But in part, they hired me because they knew I could implement the strategic plan. So it's a little bit of both. One advantage that I had, and that all of the applicants for the job had, we were on the outside looking in. So we might be able to look at things a little bit differently, take the benefit of our experience, certainly my experience here at Drexel, and say, okay, from the outside looking in, what are some of the strategic objectives that the institution could achieve under new leadership? And then what are my skills? What do I bring to the institution? Then looking at what they've said they want to accomplish, what I thought I could put my efforts and energies toward, and then understanding what might be needed from an industry point of view. That combined it to give me some kind of an agenda that they hired me on. Now, if I get there and I find out that they're either doing things well that no one knows about, or that there are other areas for improvement, I wouldn't just stick with my plan because it was a plan.
Change can be difficult for any organization, particularly as it applies to the more human, emotional side of a company or any workplace. What can an incoming leader do during his or her first days on the job to help foster goodwill and sort of put aside any fears that someone may have about the fact that an existing leader is leaving?
I think you can do your best to do that. I think there will be those fears, but recognizing that people are somewhat uneasy is a good start. The second thing, and one thing that I plan to do a lot of, is listen. I can't bring my own speed to a new institution. I have to meet them at their speed. That will buy me the time for them to trust me and for me to build my credibility within the institution, so that at the point where I've come to some understanding about what changes need to take place, I will have developed the relationships necessary to implement those. If I come in gangbusters, what I'm going to do is be perceived of as not listening, as not taking the time to really understand the culture. In fact, I made that mistake once, and I vowed that this time I wouldn't do it, that I would take the time necessary to do the listening, both to build the relationships as well as to hear what's being said.
You don't have to tell us when that mistake was made, but how did you recover from it at the time? Was there something that you did to sort of change the first steps that you took, or did you just make a note to say, all right, if ever I'm in this situation again, I'll handle it differently?
I made the note and I left the institution because the cultural differences between my style and what the institution needed were so great that I didn't feel that I could be effective. So it was a very tough lesson to learn, and one that the mental note came in handy to say, no, this time I'm going to do it a little differently.
That's certainly advice you would pass on to other leaders.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
the fact, well, I guess part of it too is the fact that you weren't afraid to leave. You were able to make that decision to say that this wasn't a fit that was going to benefit either side.
It's a tough decision to make because you feel as if you've failed. But in fact, if it's always about the institution, which in the nonprofit sector it should be, then it's important for a leader to gauge what is best for the institution, even if it means that they should leave it.
See, that's the sign of a true leader. Now, when it comes, you mentioned listening earlier, and also about the way in which you enter a new situation and you're forming these relationships. That can produce a number of people that are vying for the attention of the new leader. Until you gain a full understanding of an organization's politics, it may be difficult to process all the messages that you're receiving. What are some ways to navigate those waters?
I got some very good advice from the current president of this institution. And that's one of the things I've been doing, is asking people, tell me how to do my job. They've been in the position. And his advice was, listen to everyone, but make no promises. Identify the 2 or 3 things that have to be done, which I've worked with the Board of Trustees to do. So I know some of the things that must be done immediately. They are underway now. Listen to everyone, make no promises, and then feed back what you've heard through your own filter to people and get them, solicit their input on, okay, here's what I've heard, here's what I think the issues are, and here's how I think we should proceed. What do you think? That takes time, and I think that laying out that process might in fact buy me the time that I need to postpone people saying, well, I want this or I want that, by saying, okay, here's how I'm going to approach my first 3 months. Here's what I'm not going to do, which is make any promises I can't keep, because I go back to credibility again. Your credibility's shot if you start saying yes, yes, yes without understanding what the implications are.
When you said about credibility, that sounds more on the personal side of it. Are there personal benchmarks that you set for yourself as you're entering into this new position? And if so, do you think there's any timeline on that, or are you mainly focused on the strategic goals of the organization?
The Board of Trustees and managers have asked me to lay out a plan for my first 100 days. So I'm in the process of developing that now. I think it'd be important for me to balance being able to deliver and demonstrate that I'm a leader and that I was indeed the right person for the job, with a sense that any kind of long-term impact will be equally as important. So yes, I have laid out some goals for myself. The first is to do the listening that I talked to you about. And the second is to do some convening outside in the community. My predecessor at Moore, when she first got there, convened some of the most powerful and noted artists in the community to ask what their impression of the institution was. I will go back and do that again. It makes a lot of sense to do that. I will also be going on the road a little bit and meeting people where they are, people who've had an influence over the institution, so that they have a chance to know that, number one, I'm really good at reaching out, and they're important enough for me to come and see them.
One of the most frequently cited quotes about any leadership position is from Peter Drucker, and it's that culture in an organization eats strategy for breakfast. Mm-hmm. And what are some keys to coming up to speed with an organization's culture as you're leaving one institution, such as you are now, and going into a new one? Should you attempt to establish your footprint from day one, or should you attempt to blend in? Is there a good recipe for how to make that work with the culture of a place that you've yet to visit?
Well, of course, every culture, it might influence the recipe, but my sense is that it is important for a new leader to identify 2 or 3 people who will tell them the truth, and to rely on those people to create a safe place for them to tell the truth, so that a leader can always be in touch with what is really happening. So there's a bit of that. It doesn't imply distrust. It just is critical for making good judgment and good judgments.
Trust, that's the currency that any leader deals with. Sure. in an organization. As you enter into the new position, people gain familiarity with you as they're getting to know you. Is there anything you do to show them that trust right away, or is there anything that you could tell people about if they're in a leadership position? Some of it has to do with personality, I think. So humor is never a bad thing to use, or, as I said before, listening. But my sense is that balancing one's own expertise with treating others with equivalent respect as experts. There will be people at Moore who are expert in their field that I do not know about that particular field. Digital media, for instance. So we're going to have to rely on their own expertise and treat them as the expert. The flip side of that, of course, is laying out outcomes for everyone to comply with, giving them the resources necessary to do their job, and then evaluating them accordingly. That takes a little bit more time. But what I did learn from that previous position is you don't transfer trust or credibility into a new institution. You may have all the reputation in the world, but you have to earn it all over again when you go into a new institution. And that in part means doing what you say you're going to do, and sustaining your credibility long enough to develop relationships so people will actually believe that you're going to do it. That's a critical lesson for leaders to learn, that you, in essence, are starting from zero again with trust and credibility as you go to a new organization. I wanted to finish by asking you about Moore College, because Moore College of Art and Design, they have an amazing history. They were founded as a school of design for women, and I know now that they still have an undergraduate Bachelor of Fine Arts program that's only for women enrollees. More and more women are in leadership positions in organizations around the globe. For women who are new to a leadership role, what advice can you offer about the unique challenges that they may face? Well, Moore does this through their Locks Career Center, where they actually put the young women through a leadership curriculum. And I guess I would give young women, aspiring women, advice that might sound familiar for anyone who wants to be a leader. Find a mentor. Find 2 or 3 or 4. Do a lot of listening. Identify what their strengths are. So in my case, my sense of humor comes through, and according to people that I've worked with, it helps diffuse situations. But they may have other strengths. They might be an analytical person. They may be a great delegator. The other advice that I would give them is not to be afraid to take risks and not to wait for anyone's permission to do something that they think is right. There is power in that risk-taking, and there is power in
making decisions. So what I find is that people will defer too much to the structure, to the institution. There's in universities and colleges, there's a sense of this institution is here to take care of me. When in fact, a real leader will send a message, this institution is here so that you can make a difference in it. And that's the perspective that I would like to see young women take, regardless of whether they're working in universities and colleges or in the corporate world.
Cecelia Fitzgibbon, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Andrew. It was my pleasure.